All right, it's your girl Portia back again with the Girl Mind Your Business podcast. And today I got my girl Natalie on, and we are going to just talk with her for a little while and see what she has up her sleeve because she always has some amazing things going on. And I'm excited to see what you have for 2022. But I also kind of just wanted to give her the spotlight to give us some insight on her past, things, how she's gotten to where she's gotten. She's so successful. And I admire her. She is such an inspiration to the community. So I am, so thankful for you joining our podcast on today. So I'm just going to hand you the floor. Just give us a little background about the Miss Natalie.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Portia, for having me. I just always enjoy when we can get together and build and have conversation because it's inspiring to be with another woman boss who is so unapologetically ambitious, but in that, creating space for balance, for wellness, for life and family because
Absolutely.
I think that's what we miss now. We on social media you see just a lot of women who are doing it, and that's amazing to celebrate these women who have transformed their lives and their finances and are really owning their space.
Right.
But also,
come on,
it applies this pressure where you're looking out and you're seeing all of this action and activity and progress and prosperity.
Right.
And you feel like sometimes you need to be doing more. But when does it end? So I really appreciate that you are talking about balance and wellness within that model.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is so important. I feel like we as women get that title of being strong, and we take that and run with it, and we don't know when to stop or to say no. Those boundaries we forget, especially as entrepreneurs, especially if we're like the only ones running our business. We don't know how to delegate or to reach out for help. So absolutely, that's one of the biggest things that I push is minding your mental, and making sure you're taking care of yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place as it should. So absolutely, that's I'm big on that for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think what's interesting about my journey in doing that, because there's been so many layers to it. There's, and that's what I love. It's not just A to B.
Right.
There's so many paths in between. And sometimes we're also very hard on ourselves because it's not linear.
Right.
And we're thinking, I had this great idea. I'll start a business. I get my LLC.
Yep.
And then, I'm making money the next day.
Right.
And not understanding that there's a process.
Girl, is it a process? And it just never looked like what we think it's going to look like.
No.
And then when it doesn't look like that, we get discouraged.
Right.
That's one of the things that I've talked to several of my clientele about is the journey not looking like what they expected it to look like and not being able to adjust.
Right.
That's absolutely the biggest piece. And being okay with, some people also grow out of, like, even if their business does go as they plan, being okay with growing out of it.
That's right.
And being okay with moving on to another adventure or, into another business. So I agree 100% with you on that.
It's super unique, just like each individual person has different DNA.
Yep.
The business DNA is different. And my story, because I have a media company called Rudy's Girl Media, it actually started with acting.
Really?
Okay. It started before that with, I was living in New York and just was looking for a hobby. And so there was this ad about be a background actor and you can make XYZ amount in a day. And it just sounded fun and like exciting, and there was no real barrier to entry. You didn't have to have studied acting or anything to be a background actor. So I did that.
Okay.
And the very first set that I was on, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting and inspiring. And you think about when you're watching a show, um, you just think about the scenes as they are laid out in the show. And you don't think about all of the people who are behind the camera orchestrating it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first moment, I was able to see everything. And as I'm talking about it, it's a really nice parallel to being in business.
Right.
People see the show.
Right.
But they don't see everything.
The behind the scenes. Oh my gosh. That
so
is
much.
so powerful. Like, just even thinking about that, like, they'll see the success, the shine, but they don't see the hard work, the tears, the moments we want to give up, the moments we failed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just see the glamour behind.
That's it.
For sure. So let me ask you a question. So you went to New York and you took this gig, but were you going for acting in the first place, or you had another road to take, or you trying to take another road?
I was working at Columbia University at that point.
Okay.
And I didn't anticipate that I was going to transition out of that into another career. I was just doing that for fun.
Okay.
And so I kept doing it. And I had a cousin in New York. His name was Michael Hodge, and he passed away a few years ago. But he's a serious actor.
Oh, okay.
Like, studied it. Was the president of the New York Screen Actors Guild group. And so he's very focused. And so I told him, I was really excited. I said, Cousin Michael, I am acting now. And he was like, no, you're not. I was like, what? He was
broke your little heart.
He broke my heart. He was like, that is not acting. He was like, people have this concept of actors as just like we pop up on the screen and just start pretending. There's a craft to it.
Absolutely.
There's work that goes behind it. You have to be a student of it. You have to take classes. You have to do all of this stuff. I said, well, I'm down.
Right.
Like, tell me what to do.
Work.
So he's like, you have to take acting classes. I said, okay, great. So I found an acting studio. I'm not going to name the acting studio because he poo-pooed on the acting studio. But I started taking classes. And I came back to him and I was like, I'm going to this acting studio. He said, well, okay, well, what's the acting studio? So I told him the name and he was like,
don't go to that one.
That's not for real. I was like, what? So
if you're going to do it, you got to do it right.
Right. So he told me some places. So I got into a summer program at one of the top acting studios in New York, which is William Esper Studio. Learned so much. It was very intense. And around that time, I also had gotten a commercial agent and was just out and about in the acting world. I had left Columbia and was really pursuing this full time. Was working as a restaurant as a hostess at this point because, that's what actors do.
Right.
Have our side gigs so we can go out on these auditions. And I loved it. I loved the energy of it. I was meeting some really interesting, amazing people. I got to work on some shows and movies that with stars. I was still background acting, but
right.
It was so fun, and I was in love with it.
Right.
But there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know what it is. And at a certain point, I felt like, okay, I'm transitioning out of acting, but I know I want to be in the entertainment world. I just don't know what it is. And so I had linked up with some folks to start a production company. And so in that, I met this independent film producer named and director named Frank Callow. And I worked on a casting with him. And through working on that casting, he's just like, I like your energy. I like your spirit. Let me show you the business. And that opened my eyes to so much more in the entertainment world because I began to learn how to actually construct projects, what you need to do to put together a script, to host a casting. When you're in production, these are the key components you need to have available. How to talk to investors, like the whole thing.
Whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and I always, when I'm talking about my humble beginnings in this world, I always acknowledge him because he really did allow me to learn under him. And he presented me as an equal. When we would go to meetings, he would always refer to me as a colleague.
Was he like a mentor? for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
So let me ask you a question to piggyback off of it. How important do you think it is when we're starting a business, especially something that we're not very familiar with? You know, because I feel like some people don't understand the importance of having a mentor or a coach when they're tapping into different business ideas. How essential did you think he was for your journey to where you are now, like that mentoring piece?
I would not be where I am
Mm-hmm.
without having a Frank in my life.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there are other people who have definitely poured into me and supported me. I think he was the first, and it was definitely years of us working side by side and him teaching me daily about the business. You have to have that, even if
I
you
agree.
don't. Yeah, even if
Mm-hmm.
you don't agree with your mentor,
Mm-hmm.
even if your path is not aligned with theirs,
Mm-hmm.
um, that knowledge is so important.
It is. I totally agree, and I always, even as myself being a business coach, I have a coach. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's always, you're supposed to always have someone, you're always learning.
Right.
You're always in that position to learn and to learn from other people, and always set yourself up to be around people who know more than you
Right.
when it comes to the business game. That's when you said that, I was like, yes, that mentoring piece is so you know essential in just getting you to the next level.
And you have to be humble in that,
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
like I said, you're not always going to see eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
And, we feel ourselves.
Yes,
We're
amen
like,
to
well,
that.
I
Right,
know what I'm doing. And you may.
right.
But to be able to listen and hear, and just heighten your level of connection to good
Right,
information,
absolutely.
even if you don't take it
I was
all.
about to, or even taking it at that moment. It may
Mm-hmm.
come into play. I've
Yep.
had that situation happen before. It may not work in that particular situation, but I've stored it.
Yep.
That might work here.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I needed that for this situation.
Right. And sometimes it's not even for you. It's for
It's but
somebody that you need to help.
it's always that cycle, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
somebody is gonna always come. Like I heard that on the morning meetup. He was like, always be teachable, but also be able to teach.
Right.
Because that continues to sharpen your skills. So that's definitely a good gem for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean
Yeah.
to get you off your
No,
story
no,
though, but I
no,
just
no,
thought that was important.
it is really important, and I would recommend that anybody who's stepping out there, even if you believe you are an expert
Mm-hmm.
in your particular field, check in with other folks, because people have experiences that can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on the road with Frank quite a bit, all over New York City, with these meetings. And then eventually I kind of branched off and started to do my own work and writing, and really found voice in the writing.
Right. Okay.
So I wrote my first screenplay in 2009, and have been building that catalog ever since. And I did that in New York, and I did that in Los Angeles. So at one point I moved to LA, because everybody said, hey, if you really want to do this seriously, you have to go to LA. I kept hearing that. And I said, well,
Mm-hmm.
I am serious,
Mm-hmm.
because clearly I will take acting classes. I will work with independent film producers. I will step out there. So if you give me some guidance, I will take you up on it. So I moved across country to Los Angeles. Um, that was a great experience, meeting other people in the business. It's a different pace, it's a different process than New York, and so I
Mm-hmm.
just felt that just heightened everything that I had going on. So while I was in Los Angeles, I worked at an art school, and supported people through job coaching and getting these college students internships and part-time jobs. So it was really fulfilling to be able to use my higher ed background
Mm-hmm.
and
The
to have my
combination.
creative stuff.
I was gonna say the combination of both.
It was a
Mm-hmm.
perfect blend of both
Absolutely.
worlds. And then I started at that point literary projects. So I wrote my first book, which is The Biggest Butt in the World. It's a humorous self-help book.
It is. I love it. I have it.
So I wrote that there, and I started promoting on the East Coast.
Did you have an inspiration for that book?
Okay, so here was the inspiration. The first thing was, So it had been years that I've been writing screenplays and television show treatments and all sorts of media projects. And I hadn't had any significant traction where like a studio hadn't reached out to me to say, we're producing this, or an agent like, love your writing. I just felt like I was pushing and I wasn't getting the return that I felt like I deserved. So I said, you know what? I want to do something. I want to get my writing out there in a way that there's no gatekeepers.
Oh, I love it.
I'm doing it. I'm putting myself out there. And so I decided to self-publish this book. And I had gotten deep into personal development, personal growth reading, and had read tons and tons and tons of books, and felt like I'm an avid reader. I love reading, but a lot of people are not into it like that. And so these books are intimidating and don't feel like they would be fun or interesting. And so my inspiration was, I want to write something that's very accessible. It's short.
It's an easy read.
Easy
I love
read.
it. That's one of the biggest things for me, is having an easy read, an easy understand, and I can just apply it.
Right. It's push play on it. And so it's not intimidating. I priced it at, $10. So, and everything that I've published so far has been around 100 pages intentionally, and $10 intentionally. Low barrier of access for everyone.
Right.
So I published that, and then so my hot market was not LA. I met a lot of people in LA.
Right.
I had a great circle of friends and colleagues, but New York and here in Virginia, that's my hot market. So I came back to do some marketing for the book, and had a couple of book release events. And I was also working on a web series that's New York based called About That Life. And that was all at the same time. So I ended up on the East Coast for months and months and months working on these projects. And my intention was to go back to LA, but so much was going on here and in New York, it wasn't happening.
Gotcha.
So I believe in swimming with the tide and not against it.
Yes.
So I made the decision that I was going to not renew my lease in LA. I hadn't been in the apartment in a long time, and it's just too pricey in Los Angeles.
I was about to say, to be holding something and you're not staying in. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I wrapped up things there. Actually, before I wrapped up things there, I had filmed About That Life in November, December of 2015. And for Christmas, I came back here to spend with family. In January, I met Hassan. Total chance meeting. Was not thinking about moving back to Martinsville. Then I meet him and was like, And so we just instantly connected. And at some point when I was back in New York, I was thinking that was going to be where I kind of created my hub again. He said, well, there's no place like home.
Listen, Hassan is big on that. Listen, I hear it every time. As soon as I started looking for space, he was like, so you coming back? You coming back? I said, one step at a time. One step at a time. He is the mayor of Martinsville. I promise. Me and my husband call him the mayor of Martinsville. Like he really is. He's awesome.
Yeah. And so I was just like, you know what I do? Like,
right.
That is not here. It's not in Martinsville. And it's not that it's not an option, but how can I do what I do? But anyway, he was just so amazing, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it was going to work. Because I didn't know how to work it.
Right.
Initially. I was traveling back and forth to New York. That was expensive. It was a process. It was a financial strain. I didn't know how to navigate it.
Right.
And so I ultimately went back into traditional kind of 9-to-5 work for a little bit. Amazing, worthwhile, definitely an important part of the journey to take a step back. And there was a point in which I just missed creating so much. And I had moved away from, I hadn't moved away from writing, but I had moved into producing pieces when I was in New York and Los Angeles. And I just had that itch. Like, I got to produce something here. And I had a colleague in the Danville office, the Danville Workforce Office, who suggested short film. And so Cell was born.
Yes, it's an amazing short film. I love it. And I love how you brought all the people out of Martinsville, out of their comfort zones, and, just put them on the big screen.
That was the best part of the whole process. I believe
it. Like seeing friends, just friends that I know that have been holding on to their talent and have not been putting it out there. I'm like, this is such a great start. Like, this is just how sometimes you just put a little seed and then they just plant. Like, I felt that's what Cell was for the community. So definitely kudos for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that
planting seeds. Oh my gosh, that's definitely what I felt that was.
I didn't know the impact it would have on me and on the people who were involved until we got into it. And for all of us, it was a first. It was my first time doing a whole project here where I wasn't certain that there was the capacity to pull it off.
Right.
But there are all of these people with talent,
oh my gosh,
and resources and skills, and we just used it all. It was just like a gumbo of talent and folks.
Right.
And to see people step out of themselves and into this new creative space, and for us to collaborate together, it was very exciting.
I believe it. One of the things that, when I thought about it was they really just need that one person to believe in them. And I felt like you were that person, to just believe in them. Because sometimes we just don't believe in our own talents, or we don't hear it enough that we might be able to do something bigger than what we see. Especially in the, Martinsville. So that was just amazing in that piece itself. One of the things that I wanted to piggyback on, you did a lot of pivoting. And I think it's big, but I think it's also scary for a lot of people in business. So tell us about the pivoting. We heard the pivoting, but why do you think the pivoting is so essential in, especially the routes that you've taken and you've gotten this far with it? Because you said, okay, the screenwriting, what the studios weren't picking up. So I was like, okay, well, let me use this, being creative with what you already knew how to do, but taking another avenue. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck in business, is that they don't know how to pick other avenues, or pick up another market until they can get their main goal off the ground. So you pivoted with a book. The book took you pretty far, and then now you're back. You were going to LA. They said LA was the market. LA seemed to not be the market. You doubted Martinsville, but now here you are, and you're making it. So the pivot, tell us how essential that is to business.
Right. Well, you have to be aware. You have to listen. And you have to pay attention, because you get on the road to where you're trying to go, and you have in your mind what that place is, what that destination is. And then when it doesn't look like what you imagined, you have to figure out, is it because I took a wrong turn, or is it because I landed in this spot to figure something else out? Very similar to grade school. So there's a whole set of experiences and things that we kind of learn in kindergarten. That's your time to ABCs and coloring. And then, but first grade has its own set of kind of goals for a child to understand what's going on. So you're moving through these levels. And there's a curriculum for these different levels. Right. So you're not reading kindergarten books once you get to third grade.
Exactly.
And so that's how I think about this journey in the pivoting. It was, I got to that level. And so I learned what I needed to learn in that space. And then it was time to graduate and move to another space. And so I had to be available to second grade is not going to be third grade
Right.
stuff.
And so getting uncomfortable, being okay with being
Yeah.
uncomfortable and stepping out of your comfort zone sounds like, especially coming back to Martinsville from New York, that's a big transition.
Yeah. Very different.
Very different.
But what I love about it and what I tell all of my film friends is that creating something here has been more rewarding than creating
Absolutely.
something in New York. And not that I don't love my New York projects
Absolutely.
and my Los Angeles projects and my Atlanta projects. I love all of them. But here there's this higher level of appreciation.
I was about to say the appreciation for you is probably through, I mean, because a lot of people are not doing what you're doing and what you're offering to the community of Martinsville and shining. It's not like your position shines light on everybody else, and that is so like huge. Like that is one of the biggest things that I love about Ruby's Girls. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's been great being back, and now I'm at this point. So we talked about this before the show started. That Hometown Hustle was my latest project, and check it out. It's on the Rudy's Girl Media YouTube channel. You can watch the whole first season.
Absolutely, we'll add that to the link to the YouTube. So and is Cell still is available?
Cell, if you go to rudysgirl.com, you can watch Cell, and you can watch the second short film that we filmed here, Stolen Crowns.
That's okay. Oh yeah. I do remember that one.
So, Hometown Hustle is a 6-episode pilot season of a reality show about entrepreneurs in this area. And it was so great to highlight different business owners, to talk about the struggle, the success, the journey, seeing behind the curtain of what business owners face
the day-to-day
in a rural market. Because we see a lot of entrepreneurial shows that happen in urban markets and bigger markets, but not in these spaces. And so I really wanted to highlight that and the entrepreneurial passion that we have in this community. And people don't see that and understand that in the way that we do.
Right,
now,
absolutely.
There's a lot of hustle in this community.
Yeah.
So that has been a really important project.
And I think too, just because of the lack of resources that we kind of have, we go a little bit harder. And we can appreciate the hard work, whereas some areas where it's a little bit more accessible to do things that Martinsville may not be able to do. So we kind of have to get it out the mud just a little bit. And that hustle spirit and that hard work, and like we have that. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think that's like one of the key components of being successful in knowing that hard work, being able to put in the work, like that's huge. So I definitely can relate to, that piece for sure.
We have such strong hustle tradition and spirit in this community. I love it so much.
Absolutely. I totally agree for sure.
And what I thought about in doing Hometown Hustle, my dad for sure, because I was raised by a hustler, an entrepreneur.
You and I both.
So
yes, hustler all day long.
There's so many people here that are a part of our experience that are doing their own, business in their own way, in some form or fashion.
Right.
And so if you think about like your family and friend group, how many people are in business in some way, even if it's just a side hustle.
Right, absolutely.
You just everybody has 10 people that they know that they're cool with, who have a t-shirt line, who have a store,
jewelry line, car washing business, or something for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And that makes an impact because that allows for people to see it's possible in many different forms.
Right.
So I want to be able to highlight that through Hometown Hustle and then grow that.
Right.
Even beyond this community, and to highlight some folks in other communities who are doing the hustle work.
Absolutely. But I just, that I want to be a takeaway for the listeners. It's not where you're at. It's in you. Like, for sure. Because even listening to your journey all the way from New York to LA, back to Martinsville, and being so successful, and then being able to highlight other successful entrepreneurs, like the hustle is in you. And you can start wherever you are and be successful. Don't let the lack of resources stop you from pursuing your dreams or your acting on your talents. It's in you. And you can be whatever you want to be, no matter where you're at or the locality or how small it is. That's what I really got out the hometown hustle. And coming home to visit this week and being able to even see Wayne's task space and seeing how someone working his element, and talking to several. We did get a couple of your hometown hustle the cast
Oh,
to
okay.
come onto the
Awesome.
podcast.
Yay.
So that is the series now. So just highlighting those, and I'm like, this is so amazing, like and it's growing. And I feel like if we continue to work as a community, like how powerful we can be, and how big we can be, and how impactful we can be as a community. But I really think that you are a huge part of that, because
thank you.
You really are putting people, not they already have their business, but even when you did the movie, it's like, hey, you might not have nothing going on, but I know you have talent. Jump on this movie, and now they can pursue their acting careers, or they may not have known, like you didn't know about acting. Now they can, like, oh, that might be something I might be interested. So, that's awesome. That's awesome. So any other 2022 other than the hometown hustle? I know that's a lot.
Yep, that's a lot.
Is that the only project we have for 2022?
Oh,
I know
no.
you keep your hands in 1,000 things for sure. I know.
So continuing to promote and work with Hometown Hustle for sure. But I have all of these other projects that I've written for people in other communities about that life, which is kind of at the starting point of my writing, producing journey. That's back in the mix.
Okay.
And so there's some renewed interest in that project that we're pursuing. I have a documentary that I'm on the writing team for that's really exciting.
Oh, yes.
And on the cusp of getting that funded and going into production. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of little stuff in the hopper. And I'm always like, let me not say too much, because just like this, I could get a text message, a phone call, and I'm over in this direction, or and I want to be able to pivot.
But I'm about to say, that's that pivot again, and ain't no wrong with that pivot. Listen, I stay pivoting, so I think it's the most important thing to be able to become accustomed to doing.
Right.
When you are in the entrepreneurship journey, because you just never know what direction life or opportunities may take you.
Right.
For sure. Because I'm a pivot in a minute, girl. Yeah. The COVID, the pandemic has, really caused a lot of pivots. And unfortunately, those who were not able to pivot or come up with other ideas, unfortunately, didn't make it. So, I just think that it's so important to get the listeners to understand and to become accustomed to, being uncomfortable, thinking about different avenues if their business isn't, succeeding or going the way that they want it to go. Being okay with, okay, let's pivot a little bit.
Right. And knowing that whatever you learn during that phase or that grade of or that level, you will take that with you. It's not like it's lost time.
No, you can always pick it back up.
Yeah, all of these lessons, experiences, contacts. I've been so excited to reach back out to people who might not have even been in the entertainment world at the time, or who are in like new spaces now. On my LinkedIn, I'm always seeing people who've transitioned into new positions in that world, and now, because I met them like 10 years ago, we were doing other things, but we're still in communication.
Right.
And we're in different places, and we can collaborate in different ways. So nothing is lost.
Nothing is ever lost. So that is truly a key for us to take. And I just want to thank you for your time and all the gems that you have poured into the Girl Mind Your Business podcast.
Mind your business.
Girl, mind your business. Okay, that is what it's all about. Again, I just want to thank you for coming on to the show, and it is always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.